Welcome to this video. Today we'll be talking about the financial implications of being agile. So we'll be talking about cash flow, CapEx, capital and expense categories. We'll be talking about write-off risk and overall cash investment. Quick definition, cash flow is the flow of cash in your organization. Capital versus expense are categorizations of that finance uses to account for money. Capital things are able to be depreciated, and expense items are not depreciable. So depending on your goals, you may want to push things more towards capitalizing them or towards being expensed. Write-off risk is the amount of risk that there is that you're going to have to say take something as a loss. So if a, let's see, how do you say this? If you bought a new car and you wrecked it, you have to write off the full amount of that car as being lost, right? That's the write-off risk, the risk to writing it off. When you're in a project, the write-off risk is usually the amount of money that would have to be written off, saying we're not going to be able to make a profit on this anymore because the project failed, right? So if a project fails, then you have to write it off. Total cash investment is just what it says. The total cash that is invested in a project. Now, that is the total cash that's invested in the project. So we'll talk about it later. Here we go. This is your average project. It's a plan-driven, typical investment return model. So this project is 12 months long. They invest $150,000 every month. That's a burn rate of their team. It just made it simple here. And in the 12th month, there's a go live, at which point they start receiving $100,000 a month in revenue. So you can see the cash below the line is the cash investment. The cash above the line is the cash received, the revenues. All right, makes sense. Here we go. If you look at a payback model there, then every month you're investing $150,000, right? $150,000 goes in, none comes out. Therefore, it's just a straight up to the 12th month. They end up investing $1.95 million, close to $2 million in this project, and then it's paid back. Every month they get $100,000 back. So you'll see that the angle of incidence here is not equal. They're not the same angle. The right-hand side here kind of is a lower angle, so that the money's coming in slower than it went out initially. But that's just because you're making $100,000 instead of making $150,000. Big whoop. All right. Now you can see the payback is out here at month 32. From a plan-driven finance perspective, the net cash is $1.95 million. That's how much you put into this project. Okay. The write-off risk is $1.95 million, because when you go live, there's a risk that the customers will go, nope, don't want it, right? And then you would have to write the whole thing off. You know, there wasn't a product market fit. Somebody else came along and innovated before you. Whatever the case, on the 11th month to the 12th month, that time period right there, $1.95 million is at risk, right? You don't know what you're going to have. You don't know if your customers are going to want it. In your finance, on the records, in your budgeting, you encumber $1.95 million for the duration of the year, the 12-month period for the launch, because that's, you know, what you've got. You know that that's what you're projecting, so that's what you encumber in the accounts. And your capital expenditure, this confusing, that capital or versus CapEx. Capital expenditure here is 1.95 million. So that's the capital that you've invested in this that then will be depreciated from a capital perspective, right? It's not, there's no expenses involved here. Okay, so what the heck does that mean? Big whoop, Joseph. Well, when we do an agile project or a project that is delivered incrementally, we do it in a value-based release method. So we prioritize the things that are going to bring our customers the highest value first and lowest value later. So in this case, we're seeing this 12-month release. The first release, they're going to get, just 25% of the value is going to be seen by the customers. So release 1 goes out, boom, the customers start to use it. They're getting a little bit of value and you're getting a little bit of revenue. And in the next release, there's a little bit more that goes out. In the next release, there's a little bit more that goes out. And the next release, there's a little bit more that goes out. So what does this mean? Well, since your customers are seeing value and you're receiving revenue, that does something. In the last one, you didn't start seeing revenue here until the 13th month. In this model, since after the first month, you start receiving revenues, that becomes part of the payback period, right? And so just like this chart swoops this direction, this one swoops the exact opposite direction, because you start to get 25% of the value and then you add another, I think it was 17% and then 12% and until you reach here, at which point you have delivered all of the product and you're getting your full revenue income. You're getting your full revenues. So what does that do to our payback? Well, this is the gold line here was the original payback that goes way out here, and it is the ROI, the full payback on the investment is at 32 months. Because you started receiving revenues early, there's a dramatic difference in this net cash that has to be invested. Because you're offsetting during this period the net cash investment, your net cash investment really is, it's just a little over 100 grand by the time you get there because you're receiving revenues. You also can see that the investment curve is not straight down because part of it, this much of it, is being paid off each one of these months. And so because it didn't drop down as far and you started receiving revenues earlier, your payback period shortened significantly, right? Here we are in month 22, 23, something like that. And you've already gotten a full payback and you're starting to make just straight up profits after that, right? The product has, the development has paid for itself in the product. Now there's obviously incidental running operating costs and things like that, but we're just talking about the project costs. So another element that you can throw on top of this is, look, we get in this project, we're delivering on a value-based delivery process. We're now 8 months in and we've released all these things. The remaining releases, our customers are super happy. The remaining releases equate to about 15% or 12%, right, of the total value. I think it's 12% if I added those numbers up correctly. It's about 12% of the total value that the customers could be receiving from the project. Now remember, each one of these releases still costs us $150,000 to make. It's delivering a lower value to our customer because we prioritize these features in order that they provide value. Does that make sense? If not, rewind a little bit and listen to it again. Because we are releasing these things in the order of value to our customer, the things down here, though they cost the same as this one to release, are delivering that little bit of value. So you might get down to this point in the project, month 8, release 8, and go, you know what? While this is a valiant effort and a good product that we're creating, There are other things in our backlog that will create higher initial revenues for our company. They have a better return on investment for that $150,000, right? So you get here and you're making a trade-off decision. Do I want to invest $150,000 to get, if this is if the total value is $100,000, this is like $4,000. Is that right? Sounds right. Do I want to invest $150,000 to get that little return every month back? Or do I just say, whoops, I'm going to set an ROI threshold of 5% and say these bottom things, I'm going to put my people on something else, right? I'm going to move them to a higher return project, a higher return set of features, or a different product to have them work on. So what does that do now? Well, you'll see that the investment got cut by this amount here, right? So it pushes in to 8 months instead of the full 12. But we're also not receiving all of the value, right? Before it was up to, you were getting $100,000 a month return. Now you're only getting some smaller amount, whatever it is, minus 12%, right? Or minus $12,000. So what that does is you didn't make as much investment. You're still on this curve because you're receiving revenues, but you don't go as far down into investment. So your ROI comes back up here, and you're at what, 17 months. So we've moved from about 32, 33 all the way up to 17 months ROI. So over 2 years to just under 1. That's significant. That's a significant change. This is close to 2 years. This is almost close to 3 years. So you can see there's a huge difference. Now let's just talk quickly about, so that's just the difference in ROI. Here's the difference in the plan-driven financial picture versus the value-driven financial picture. It's a totally different diagram because this one, everything's lump sum. You get to the end and you have to do it all. Here, it's a rolling picture. So, write-off risk. The risk that we will have to write down on our finances that this thing didn't work. Well, as long as you are using a rolling investment model where you're not encumbering it every time, but you're leaving that open-ended, your write-off risk is actually only the release of that for that month. It doesn't accrue. So if I invest $100,000 or $150,000 in the first month and I don't see any return for it, my capital expenditure is $150,000. My net cash investment is $150,000, and my write-off risk is $150,000. That first, it looks exactly like this, but only for 1 month, and the numbers are way smaller. It's not 1.95 million, it's 150. And the next month, my write-off risk is still only 150 because I put it into production and I know that it works, right? I don't have to write it off because I know it works. My customers are receiving value and I'm starting to get payback. So my capital expenditure is the same, right? It's 150,000 here, it's 150,000 here, minus a little bit, because here my net cash investment, my capital investment is what is that? 150 plus 150 is 300,000. But my net cash investment is less than that because I've received revenues. Does that make sense? So I've received some revenues. So my net cash to create this product, in the end, I'm investing, but I'm getting return. I'm investing this much, but getting this much return, investing this much, but getting this much return. Now remember, capital expenditure here only reaches 1.35 million. It doesn't reach the 1.95 million. Why is that? Well, because we stopped at month 8 instead of month 12. If we had gone all the way to month 12, it would still reach the same total, but we stopped early. And so it's only a 1.35 million net cash investment. And capital expenditure. But it's a less than $1 million in the net cash because of the offset from the income. Make sense? So, and my write-off risk is still $150 for every release. $150,000. Oh my God, your financial people will love this when they hear it, right? It's huge. It changes the world. So help them understand this. Now, compare that to the traditional plan-driven, right? Everything is 1.95 million, but bam, I hope it works. That's so risky. Why anyone would think an agile approach is risky, I don't know. That is risky. So in summary, cash budget, right? The money you have to set aside for that, which is what we call here the net cash. We'll call it cash budget here. You have to plan for it for 1.95 million in your plan driven. If it's value driven, you can plan for it to be less than $1 million. Less than $1 million. The difference there is $1.1 million of difference. That's an improvement of 57%, folks. Write-off risk is ridiculously better. Write-off risk of 1.95 million on the day before you go live versus 150,000, 150,000, 150,000, right? That's a $1.8 million difference. 92% improvement in write-off risk. And the capital expenditure is in the plan driven 1.95 million. We only had to expend 1.3. We bettered it by $600,000, more than $500,000, and improved that capital expense by 31%. Now, granted, we're giving up a little bit of return on our investment financially, like month to month recurring, but not much. Not much. So those are the dramatic financial reasons why you should be taking an agile approach to things. All right? Thanks for watching.